You guys are about to be majorly blessed with this testimony. This kind of testimony doesn't come around very often. This pastor had just all but given up. His wife was just done. His daughter was just completely lost. But his church rallied around him. They're just pounding on the door of heaven. They're pleading with God to bring back his daughter. There was an encounter with Jesus. Like, this testimony has it all. So take a watch and be blessed.
About 8 or 9 years ago, my daughter, who is here today, she got away from us. She got away from not only us, she got away from God. She got away from our house. And my wife and I went through a 2.5-year-long nightmare that I don't want to go into. You know what the feeling is, not to know where your daughter is when she grew up as a model child. I have 2 other children. I'm talking about getting in my car and leaving my house to go to the church in the inner city where I'm going to face, 10 new people who visit who are HIV positive and a battered woman and no neat family units and everything discombobulated. And I don't want to be the focus. I'm supposed to be there, Carol and I, to minister to them. But I'm crying from the minute I leave my door to the church and saying, God, my heart is broken. My nerves are shot. I've screamed, begged, pleaded, tried to use money, reasoned, cried, and she's getting worse. She's not getting better. And how am I going to minister? And we're starting other churches and renting Radio City Music Hall and starting new churches in the city and going to South America. And Carol's writing songs and making albums, but nobody knows, or very few people know, that we're hanging by a thread, my friend, by a thread. And all the times I drove and cried out to God, coming in and saying, God, please just get me through these 3 meetings. We have 11, 3:30, and 7:30 services, each about 2 hours long or more. And I'm just saying, God, please just get me through another Sunday. And God would just lift me, and I would have the grace to get through and minister to people, even though inside I was so just shaky. And I learned that when you pray, God comes. I learned that when you have no logical way to stand, God somehow, when you pray, gives you fresh feet and a fresh foundation. We have a prayer band in our church. It's a more important ministry than the 240 voice Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. There's a prayer band that not only prays through each service, about 20 of them pray through each service on Sunday while I'm preaching and ministering there in a room locked away praying, but now they pray for several years now, from 2 in the afternoon till 6 in the morning. In the church, there's people praying every 7 days a week, 2 in the afternoon till 6 in the morning. If any of you have some need, you can just mail it to our church. Someone will pray for it 3 in the morning. It's an amazing thing how God honors that. Well, they began to pray for me, and as God is my witness, I would sense myself at night sometimes, or shaving in the morning, I would feel God's grace just come underneath me and begin to steady me and hold my emotions. And I hadn't even been thinking about God, and I would say, Lord, what is this that's just come into my life? Somebody's praying for me. Somebody's praying for me. If people would be praying for me, God bless them. Then my wife got ill, had to have a hysterectomy, and the hormonal imbalance that she ended up with. My daughter's out of the house, the other 2 children, I'm doing the best I can. And now my wife is not talking just about leaving New York, which she wanted to, because the enemy had told her, fine, start your churches and influence people for Christ, but I'm going to have all your children. I've got 1 and I'm coming for the other 2. And my wife believed it and told me, you can leave with me or you can stay, but I'm leaving. Because he already has Chrissy, and I'm not losing my other 2 kids. Enough with this. We can't do this. The atmosphere in the city, New York is a miserable place to be. I'm not there because I like it. I'm there because God put me there. And then after the operation, she's talking about she doesn't feel any reason to live any longer. And I mean, what do? Your wife is flipping out. Your daughters, you're preaching, you're doing all of these things. I'm just telling you, oh, how wonderful it is to know that at the throne of grace, no matter what's happening, God can lift you and hold you. What a wonderful God. One November, after about 2 years had passed, Chrissy was away God and I got totally alone in Florida. And God spoke to me and said, I know you've been praying for Chrissy. The impressions I got were basically this. I don't want to sound mystical or sensational. I'm just going to tell you from my heart. No more talking to Chrissy, and no more talking to anyone else, and no more money, and no more screaming, and no more crying. Drop it. Just tell me. Let's make a covenant. You just tell me, and I'll take care of it. And I told my wife, I'm not going to see my daughter until she's right. And that's my first child. My wife kept in touch with her. Months went by. Christmas, sad Christmas. Who wants presents when your daughter's away? On a February night in the prayer meeting, my house shall be called a house of prayer. We were all praying and calling on God and waiting on God. You know, nobody in charge, no choir, no speaker. Who needs it? You have Jesus. It's amazing how wonderful He is. And someone sent a note up to me, a woman, a young lady who's sensitive to the Lord. And she sent a note up through an usher, and the note said, I feel deeply impressed that we should stop the prayer meeting and pray for your daughter. I looked at the note. People were praying all around me. I looked at the note and said, God, is this really you? I don't want to be the center of attraction. People have their own needs, but I felt impressed it was. I stopped the prayer meeting after a little while, and everybody gathered together in that room, in that church, and held hands. Over 1,000 people probably that night. And I called one of my associate pastors in the front, and he began to pray. And all I can tell you, and I don't know what your theology is, and it really doesn't matter, I'm just going to tell you what happened. You know where Paul said, I travail like a mother giving birth till Christ be formed on you? Well, I told the people, my daughter thinks up is down, and down is up, and she thinks light is dark, and dark is light. And unless God visits her and intervenes, my daughter is out there. And someone wants me to stop the meeting so you could pray. My associate's going to come, he's going to pray. And suddenly it turned into a labor room. You ever hear women when they're giving labor? It's not pleasant, but it has some great results. And they began to pray. I was overwhelmed by it. As God is my witness, I was overwhelmed by it. I mean, they began to pray as if they went to the throne of grace like, and now Satan, you will give up that girl. They prayed. I came home. My wife wasn't there that night, and over a cup of coffee at night, I told her, Carol, it's over. She said, what's over? I said, it's over. If there's a God in heaven, what I just experienced tonight, it is over, finito, it's over. Just about a day later, I was shaving, and my wife burst into the bathroom and said, Chrissy's here. I said, Chrissy, I hadn't seen her in 4 months. Chrissy, and you better go down. I went down the steps, and wiping off the shave cream, and on the kitchen floor was my daughter on her knees. And then when I walked in the kitchen, she grabbed at my pants leg. She pulled it. She was weeping, and she said, Daddy, I've sinned against God. I've sinned against myself. I've sinned against you and Mommy. Daddy, forgive me for being rebellious, etc. Daddy, it's different. But Daddy, who was praying for me? Who was praying Tuesday night for me? Why, Chrissy, what happened? And she drew up to me. She said, in the middle of the night, God woke me up. And He showed me that I was heading toward a chasm, and it had no bottom. But Daddy, even as He showed me that and showed me how off I was, He put His arms around me and He showed me that He loved me and He had a plan for my life. And Daddy, I made it right with God. And I could tell by her face she was my daughter again, the one I had raised. Very soon God opened the door, and for the next 4 years she directed the music program at a Bible school. She married a man of God. They're both in the ministry today. And God reminded me once again, my house shall be called a house of prayer, because when you call, I will answer. And the hard cases that some of you are facing, I want to tell you now, it won't come from another seminar. Seminars have their limit. All they can do is be an arrow that gets you to the throne of grace. But when you get there, watch out. Because God can do exceedingly beyond what we ask or think. I'm not being emotional. I'm not being simplistic. But we have too many technicians now invading the church that are into methodology. The answer is not in methodology. The answer is in the power of the Holy Spirit. The answer is in the grace of God.